The poor waitress froze when she saw the photo of her missing mother in her boss's office. The morning shift at Bernie's diner always smelled the same. Burnt coffee, grease from the griddle, and desperation. Hailey Brooks had been slinging hash browns and refilling cups for 3 years now, and she'd gotten pretty good at tuning it all out. The clatter of dishes, the hum of tired conversations, the way her feet ached by hour 2, it all just faded into background noise. "Order up." Bernie's gravelly voice cut through the kitchen window. Hailey grabbed the plates, balancing them with the kind of ease that only came from doing something 1,000 times over. Table 6 got their pancakes, Table 3 got their eggs over easy, and Mrs. Peterson at the counter got her usual, black coffee and a sympathetic smile because her husband had passed last spring. "You're an angel, sweetheart," Mrs. Peterson said, patting Hailey's hand with fingers that trembled slightly. "Just doing my job," Hailey replied, but she squeezed back gently. Small kindnesses mattered in Bakersfield. They were sometimes all people had. The lunch rush had just died down when Bernie appeared from the back office, wiping his hands on his grease-stained apron. "Hailey, I need you to run a delivery." She glanced at the clock. "Now, I've got tables. Sarah can cover, this is important. Sinclair and Associates, that big law firm downtown, they're regulars, and they tip well. Don't screw it up." Hailey untied her apron and grabbed the thermal bag. Inside were sandwiches, salads, and 4 cups of coffee. The address was in the nice part of town, the part where buildings had marble lobbies and people wore suits that cost more than her monthly rent. 20 minutes later, she stood in the elevator of the Sinclair building, watching the floor numbers climb. 10th floor, 12th, 15th. The doors finally opened to reveal a reception area that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything was sleek. "Modern, expensive, delivery from Bernie's," Hailey announced to the receptionist, a woman with perfect makeup and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh good. Take it to Mr. Sinclair's office, down the hall, last door on the right." Hailey walked down a corridor lined with framed certificates and awards. The carpet was so thick her footsteps made no sound. She balanced the thermal bag carefully, suddenly very aware of her worn sneakers and the coffee stain on her jeans. The door to David Sinclair's office was slightly ajar. She knocked anyway. "Come in," a distracted voice called out. Hailey pushed the door open and stepped inside. The office was huge. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Bookshelves lined with leather-bound law books. A massive desk made of dark wood. But none of that registered. Her eyes locked onto a single photograph sitting on the corner of that desk. The thermal bag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. It couldn't be, but it was. Her mother's face stared back at her from that photograph. The same soft smile, the same warm eyes, and there, resting against her collarbone, was the golden butterfly necklace, the one that haunted Hailey's dreams, the one she'd spent 20 years trying to remember clearly. "Are you all right?" The voice came from behind her. Hailey spun around. A man stood in the doorway, mid-40s, dark hair with threads of silver at the temples, sharp features softened by genuine concern. He wore an expensive suit, but he'd loosened his tie like he'd been working for hours. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She just pointed at the photograph, her hand shaking. David Sinclair's eyes followed her gesture. When he saw what she was pointing at, his face went pale. He walked slowly to his desk, picked up the frame, and stared at it like he was seeing a ghost. "Where?" His voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Where did you see this woman?" "That's my mother." The words came out as barely a whisper. The photograph slipped from David's hands and clattered onto the desk. He gripped the edge of the desk like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "That's not possible," he said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "This is Clara, my wife. She disappeared 20 years ago." Hailey's legs felt weak. She grabbed the back of a leather chair to steady herself. "My mother's name was Clara. She left when I was 3. I never saw her again." David looked at her then, really looked at her. His eyes traveled across her face, taking in every detail. The green eyes, the scattering of freckles across her nose, the way her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders. "Oh my God," he breathed. "You look just like her." They stood there in that expensive office. 2 strangers connected by an impossible coincidence, both trying to process what this meant. "What's your name?" David asked quietly. Hailey Brooks. How old are you? 23. He did the math quickly. His hand went to his mouth. Clara was pregnant when she disappeared. We just had a baby girl. She left the hospital with our daughter in her arms, and I never saw either of them again. Hailey felt tears building behind her eyes. She'd spent her whole life with fragments, a lullaby she couldn't quite remember, the scent of jasmine, the glint of gold at her mother's throat. She'd been raised by her Aunt Rachel, who'd been too drunk most days to talk about where Hailey had really come from. I don't understand, Hailey said. How is this even possible? David moved around his desk, but kept a respectful distance. I searched for years. The police said it looked like she'd run away. There was no body, no evidence of foul play, just gone, like she'd never existed. I grew up in Bakersfield, Hailey said, trying to piece it together. My aunt said my mom dropped me off one day and never came back. I always thought she just didn't want me. No, David's voice was firm. Clara wanted you. She loved you. She talked about you constantly those first 3 months. Something happened. Something took her away from both of us. They stood in silence, the weight of 20 lost years pressing down on them. Finally, David spoke. I know this sounds crazy, but would you be willing to take a DNA test? I need to know if you're really my daughter. Hailey nodded slowly. She'd come here to deliver sandwiches. She was leaving with the possibility that everything she'd believed about her life was wrong. I'll have my assistant set it up, David continued. In the meantime, I'd like to learn more about you, about what happened after Clara disappeared. Okay, Hailey said. Though her mind was still reeling, as she turned to leave, David called out, Hailey, that necklace Clara's wearing in the photo, do you remember it? She closed her eyes, and suddenly she was 3 years old again, small fingers reaching up to touch the golden butterfly as her mother sang softly in the darkness. I remember, she whispered. I remember everything. The DNA test took all of 5 minutes, a quick swab of the inside of her cheek, a sterile tube, and a promise that results would come back in 7 to 10 business days. Hailey sat in the medical office's waiting room afterward, staring at the pastel paintings on the wall without really seeing them. The lab we're using is discreet, David had assured her earlier that morning. No one needs to know about this until we have answers. She appreciated that. The last thing she needed was for this to blow up in her face if it turned out to be some cosmic coincidence. But deep down, in a place she rarely let herself acknowledge, Hailey knew. She'd known the moment she saw that photograph. Her phone buzzed. A text from Bernie. Where are you? You've got a shift in 20 minutes. Hailey's fingers hovered over the keyboard. How was she supposed to go back to slinging coffee and pretending everything was normal when her entire world had just tilted sideways? Before she could respond, David emerged from the consultation room where he'd been speaking with the lab technician. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much. Hailey figured she probably looked the same. All set, he said. Now we wait. Yeah. She stood up, slinging her worn backpack over her shoulder. I should get to work. My boss is already pissed that I bailed yesterday. David hesitated, then pulled out his wallet. Let me at least cover your lost wages from yesterday. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I don't need your money. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He put the wallet away, nodding slowly. I understand. But Hailey, I'd like to make you an offer while we wait for the results. Why don't you come stay at my house, work for me as an assistant? I could use the help organizing files, and it would give us a chance to talk, to figure this out. Hailey's first instinct was to say no. Accepting help felt dangerous, like giving someone power over you. Rachel had taught her that, usually right before drinking away the grocery money. But then again, what did she have to lose? A crappy apartment she shared with 2 roommates who stole her food. A job that paid barely enough to survive. A life that had always felt like she was waiting for something to begin. Okay, she heard herself say, but I'm keeping my apartment just in case. Just in case, David agreed, though something in his eyes looked relieved. The Sinclair mansion sat in the hills overlooking Denver, surrounded by iron gates and manicured gardens that probably cost more to maintain than Hailey made in a year. As David's car pulled up the long driveway, Hailey pressed her face against the window like a kid. This is where you live. It's too big, David admitted. It was Clara's dream house after she disappeared. I couldn't bring myself to sell it. I kept thinking she'd come back and he trailed off. But Hailey understood. Hope was a funny thing. It could keep you going or destroy you, sometimes both at once. A woman stood waiting on the front steps. She was elegant in that effortless way that came from money and good breeding. Tailored dress, perfect posture, dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She looked to be in her late 40s, attractive in a cold, austere way. "That's Miranda," David said quietly. "My late brother's wife. She's been living here since Robert passed 5 years ago. Helps me manage the household." Miranda's smile didn't reach her eyes as they approached. "David, darling, you didn't mention we'd be having a guest. Miranda, this is Hailey Brooks. She'll be staying with us for a while, working as my assistant." The way Miranda's gaze swept over Hailey felt like being inventoried and found lacking. The worn jeans, the cheap sneakers, the backpack with the broken zipper. Miranda saw it all. "How unexpected," Miranda said, her voice honey-sweet and razor-sharp. "We'll need to prepare the guest room in the east wing. I hope you don't mind sharing a bathroom." "Dear, the ensuite rooms are all occupied. I'm sure it'll be fine," Hailey said, meeting Miranda's eyes steadily. She'd dealt with plenty of people who looked down on her. This was nothing new. David cleared his throat. "Actually, prepare the room next to mine. The one with the view of the gardens." Miranda's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, whatever you think best." As Miranda disappeared inside, David gave Hailey an apologetic look. "She means well. She just takes a while to warm up to new people." Hailey doubted that, but she kept her mouth shut. The room David had assigned her was bigger than her entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, dressed in cream linens that looked like they'd never been used. French doors opened onto a small balcony overlooking gardens where flowers bloomed in carefully orchestrated chaos. Hailey dropped her backpack on the bed and walked to the window. In the distance, mountains rose against a cloudless sky. She'd lived her whole life in the valley, looking up at those mountains and wondering what it would be like to see the world from up there. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." David entered carrying a cardboard box. "I thought you might want to see these. Clara's things. I've kept them all these years." He set the box on the bed, and Hailey approached it like it might explode. Inside were pieces of a life she couldn't remember. A silk scarf, a hairbrush with strands of dark hair still caught in the bristles, a worn paperback of poetry, and there, nestled in tissue paper, a golden butterfly necklace. Hailey's hand trembled as she lifted it. The metal was cool against her palm, surprisingly heavy. A memory hit her with physical force, being small enough to fit in her mother's lap, reaching up to touch this necklace while a soft voice sang, "Mariposa, Mariposa," dancing in the moonlight. "She used to sing to me," Hailey whispered. "I always thought I made it up, a story I told myself so I wouldn't feel so alone." David's voice was rough when he spoke. "She sang that to you every night. I'd hear her from the nursery when I got home from work." Hailey fastened the necklace around her throat. It settled against her skin like it had been waiting 20 years to come home. "The results will be back in a week," David said. "But Hailey, looking at you right now, wearing her necklace, standing in this house, I already know. You're my daughter. I can feel it." "Yeah," Hailey said softly, touching the butterfly at her throat. "Me too." They stood there in that moment. Two people trying to bridge a 20-year gap with nothing but hope, and a piece of jewelry that had survived when everything else had been lost. Neither of them noticed Miranda standing in the hallway outside, her hand frozen on the doorknob she'd been about to knock on. Neither of them saw the way her face twisted with something that looked like rage before smoothing back into careful neutrality. Miranda had spent 20 years building a life in this house, 20 years positioning herself as the woman David needed. And this girl, this nobody from nowhere, was threatening to destroy everything. She wouldn't allow it. Turning silently, Miranda walked back down the hallway. Already planning her next move, Hailey couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, and every time she closed her eyes, her mind spun with questions that had no answers. At 3 a.m, she gave up and decided to explore. The mansion was different at night. Moonlight streamed through tall windows, casting everything in shades of silver and shadow. Her bare feet made no sound on the hardwood floors as she wandered through hallways lined with paintings of people she didn't know. Ancestors, probably. Looking stern and judgmental even in death, she found herself drawn to David's study. The door was unlocked, and she slipped inside, feeling like a thief. Even though she'd been invited to stay here, the room smelled like leather and old books. David's desk was neat, organized, everything in its place. But on the credenza behind it, Hailey spotted something that made her heart skip. A cardboard file box labeled in faded marker. Clara. Private investigation. She shouldn't look. She knew that. But her hands were already lifting the lid. Inside were police reports, witness statements, private investigator notes spanning years. David had been thorough, obsessive even. Every lead followed, every dead end documented. Hailey flipped through pages of interviews with hospital staff. Neighbors, friends. Everyone said the same thing. Clara had been happy, excited about the baby, showed no signs of wanting to leave. Then she found a page that made her freeze. It was a handwritten note, dated 3 years after Clara's disappearance. The writing was rushed, urgent. Miranda's statement doesn't match hospital security footage. She claimed she left at 8 p.m. Footage shows her car in the parking lot until 11:47 p.m. Why did she lie? Need to verify alibi. Hailey read it again and again. Find anything interesting? She spun around, heart hammering. Miranda stood in the doorway, wrapped in a silk robe, her expression unreadable. I was just... Hailey started, but there was no good way to finish that sentence. Miranda walked into the room with measured steps, snooping through David's private files. How predictable. She picked up the note Hailey had been reading, glanced at it, then set it down with deliberate calm. You should be careful, dear. Old investigations can be misleading. People misremember things. Security footage gets timestamps wrong. Do they? Hailey asked, meeting her gaze. All the time. Miranda's smile was cold. You're very young. I suppose you don't understand how complicated the world can be. How easy it is for desperate people to see conspiracies where there are only coincidences. I'm not desperate, aren't you? Miranda tilted her head. A poor girl shows up claiming to be the long-lost daughter of a wealthy man. It's quite the story, almost too perfect. Hailey felt anger flare in her chest. I didn't ask for any of this. I was delivering sandwiches, that's it. Of course. Miranda moved toward the door, then paused. A word of advice, Hailey. David is vulnerable right now. He wants so badly to believe you're his daughter that he's not thinking clearly. But I've been protecting this family for a long time. If you're here to hurt him, to take advantage of his grief, you'll have to go through me first. She left, her footsteps fading down the hall. Hailey stood there, hands shaking. She looked down at the investigation file, at that note about Miranda's lie, and felt the first real stirring of fear. The next morning, David took her to his favorite coffee shop in downtown Denver. It was one of those places where everything was artisanal and cost twice what it should, but the coffee was actually good. I want to tell you about Clara, David said, wrapping his hands around his cup like he needed the warmth. About what happened that night. Hailey waited, sensing he needed to do this at his own pace. We'd been married for 5 years. She was a nurse. That's how we met, actually. I was defending a client who'd been injured at her hospital, and she testified as a witness. I took one look at her and forgot every question I'd prepared. He smiled at the memory. She was brilliant, kind. She saw the good in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it. What happened when I was born? David's expression clouded. You were premature, born at 36 weeks. Nothing serious, but they kept you both for observation. Clara was getting ready to be discharged when she called me. Said she had a headache and felt dizzy. I told her I'd leave work early, come pick you both up. But when I got there, he trailed off, staring into his coffee. The nurses said she'd checked herself out, signed the papers, took you and left. No explanation. Security footage showed her getting into her car with you in a carrier. And then, nothing. The car was found 3 days later in a grocery store parking lot. Empty. No signs of struggle. No blood. Just gone. And the police. They investigated for 6 months. Treated it like a missing person case at first. Then, they started suggesting maybe she'd left on purpose. Postpartum depression, they said. Maybe she'd started a new life somewhere. His jaw clenched. "I never believed that. Not for a second." Hailey thought about the note in the file. What about Miranda? Where was she that night? David looked surprised by the question. Miranda. She was at the hospital earlier. Visiting us? Why? Just wondering. Hailey decided not to mention what she'd found. Not yet. Over the next few days, Hailey settled into an uneasy routine. She helped David organize files in his home office, learned the basics of legal filing systems, and tried to ignore the way Miranda watched her constantly. Small things started happening. Her bathroom faucet wouldn't turn off properly, flooding the floor. Her laptop, a cheap thing, but all she owned, disappeared from her room for 6 hours before reappearing on the bed with no explanation. A coffee cup shattered when she picked it up, the handle seemingly intact one moment and cracked the next. Accidents. That's what Miranda called them when David asked. Just accidents. But Hailey knew better. She started keeping her door locked at night. Started paying attention to Miranda's schedule, to when she left the house and when she returned. She noticed how Miranda dominated conversations at dinner, steering them away from Clara, from the past, from anything that might lead to uncomfortable questions. One afternoon, Hailey overheard Miranda on the phone in the conservatory. "No, it's not handled," Miranda was saying, her voice tight with frustration. "She's still here. David's completely taken in by her. I don't care what it costs. Find something. There has to be something in her background we can use." Hailey backed away silently, her pulse racing. That evening, at dinner, Miranda was all smiles. "Hailey, dear, I've been meaning to ask, what do people in town think about you staying here? I imagine there's quite a bit of gossip." David frowned. "Miranda, I'm just concerned about Hailey's reputation," Miranda continued smoothly. "You know how people talk. A young woman, living in a wealthy man's home, some might get the wrong idea. People can think whatever they want," Hailey said quietly. "I know why I'm here." "Of course you do." Miranda's smile didn't waver. "I'm sure once the DNA results come back, everything will be cleared up, one way or another." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Miranda was counting on those results to prove Hailey was a fraud. And if they didn't? Hailey touched the butterfly necklace at her throat and wondered just how far Miranda would go to protect whatever secrets she was hiding. She had a feeling she was about to find out. The envelope arrived on a Wednesday. Hailey was in the kitchen making coffee when David walked in. Still in his pajamas, holding a manila envelope with the lab's logo in the corner. His hands were shaking. "It came," he said unnecessarily. Hailey set down the coffee pot. Her mouth had gone completely dry. "Do you want to open it alone?" "No." He looked at her, really looked at her. "We should do this together." They sat at the kitchen table, that envelope between them like it contained either salvation or destruction. Morning light streamed through the windows, making everything look too bright, too sharp. David's hands fumbled with the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper with charts and numbers and scientific terminology that Hailey didn't understand. But she understood the bolded conclusion at the bottom. Probability of paternity. 99,97%. The paper slipped from David's fingers. His face crumpled, and suddenly he was crying. Great, gasping sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him. 20 years of grief, of not knowing, of hoping against hope, all pouring out at once. "You're my daughter," he choked out. "You're my Hailey, my baby." Hailey found herself crying too, though she hadn't expected to. She'd spent so long telling herself she didn't need a father, that she was fine on her own. But now, faced with the reality of it, she realized how much she'd been lying to herself. David stood and pulled her into a hug. He smelled like coffee and expensive cologne. Nothing like the men Rachel had brought around when Hailey was growing up. He held her like she was precious, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. "I'm sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry I didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry you grew up without me. I'm sorry." "Stop," Hailey whispered against his shoulder. "You didn't know. Neither of us knew. They stayed like that for a long time. Two people trying to compress 20 years of loss into a single embrace. When they finally pulled apart, David wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I want to tell everyone. I want the whole world to know you're my daughter." "Okay," Hailey said, smiling through her tears. but maybe we start with Miranda." David's expression sobered. "Right, Miranda." They found her in the conservatory, tending to her orchids. She looked up as they entered, and Hailey could have sworn she saw something like dread flash across Miranda's face before it smoothed into polite interest. "The results came," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "I see." Miranda set down her pruning shears very carefully. "And she's my daughter. Hailey is my daughter." The silence that followed felt alive, dangerous. Miranda's face went through a series of micro-expressions: shock, anger, something that looked almost like fear, before settling on a brittle smile. "Well, how wonderful for you both." Her voice was steady, but Hailey noticed her knuckles were white where she gripped the edge of the potting table. "I suppose congratulations are in order." "Miranda, I know this is a lot to process," David started. "Process?" Miranda laughed, a sharp sound with no humor in it. "David, darling, I'm thrilled for you truly, after all these years, to find your daughter. It's like a miracle." But her eyes told a different story. When she looked at Hailey, there was pure hatred there, barely concealed beneath that practiced smile. "I should let you two celebrate," Miranda continued. "I have some calls to make anyway." She left the conservatory with measured steps, but Hailey heard her footsteps quicken once she was in the hallway. David didn't seem to notice. He was too busy pulling out his phone, already calling his lawyer, his accountant, making plans to change his will, to set up trust funds, to give Hailey everything he'd been saving for a daughter he'd thought was dead. Hailey touched the butterfly necklace at her throat and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. That night, Hailey woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. She lay perfectly still, listening. The footsteps paused outside her door, and she saw the doorknob turn slowly, locked. She'd gotten into the habit of locking it. The footsteps moved away. Hailey waited 5 minutes, then slipped out of bed and cracked her door open. The hallway was empty, but a light was on downstairs. Against her better judgment, she followed it. The light came from David's study, through the partially open door. She could see Miranda standing at David's desk, going through the Clara investigation file. She was taking photos of pages with her phone, her movements quick and efficient. Hailey's foot hit a creaky floorboard. Miranda's head snapped up. For a moment, they just stared at each other. "Trouble sleeping?" Miranda asked, her voice honey-sweet. "Could ask you the same thing." Miranda carefully closed the file. "I was just reminiscing. Clara and I were friends, you know, before she disappeared." "Were you?" Hailey stepped into the room. "Funny, David never mentioned that. There's a lot David doesn't know." Miranda moved toward the door, and Hailey had to step aside to let her pass. "About that night, about what really happened." "What does that mean?" Miranda paused in the doorway. "It means, dear girl, that you should be very careful. You think finding your father solves everything. You think you're safe now." She leaned in close, and Hailey could smell her cloying floral perfume. "You're not. This family has secrets that would destroy you, and I've worked too hard, for too long, to let some nobody from Bakersfield ruin everything." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." Miranda smiled. "Sleep well, Hailey." Hailey stood in the study long after Miranda left, her heart pounding. She looked at the investigation file, at all those unanswered questions about Clara's disappearance, and she thought about Miranda's words. There's a lot David doesn't know about that night. What had Miranda done? The answer came sooner than she expected. She was walking down the main staircase the next afternoon, when the wooden handrail suddenly gave way beneath her hand. The screws that should have held it to the wall were gone. Not loose, not broken, but completely removed. Hailey grabbed for the wall, but her momentum was already carrying her forward. She fell, tumbling down 6 stairs before her shoulder hit the landing. Pain exploded through her arm, white-hot and blinding. She heard running footsteps. Voices shouting. David appeared above her, his face pale with panic. "Don't move! I'm calling an ambulance!" "My arm!" Hailey gasped. The pain was making her nauseous as David pulled out his phone. Hailey looked up the stairs. Miranda stood at the top, perfectly still, watching. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and Hailey saw satisfaction there. Cold, calculated satisfaction. Then Miranda's expression shifted to horror. "Oh my God, Hailey, are you all right? What happened?" But Hailey had seen the truth, and she knew. This wasn't going to end with a DNA test and a happy reunion. This was just the beginning. The fracture wasn't bad, just a hairline crack in her radius that would heal in 6 weeks with a cast and some rest. But the doctor's words kept echoing in Hailey's head. "You're lucky. A fall like that could have been much worse." Lucky, right. David had insisted she stay in the hospital overnight for observation. He'd barely left her side, guilt written all over his face like he'd personally removed those screws himself. "I'm having the entire house inspected," he said for the 3rd time. "Every railing, every staircase. This never should have happened." Hailey looked at him, this man who was her father, and realized he still didn't see it, didn't want to see it. Miranda was family to him, the widow of his beloved brother, the woman who'd stood by him through Clara's disappearance. He couldn't imagine she'd hurt anyone deliberately, but Hailey had seen her face, that moment of satisfaction before the mask came down. "David," Hailey said carefully, "what if it wasn't an accident?" He stopped pacing. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if someone removed those screws on purpose?" "Hailey, no. Who would—" He stopped, seeing where she was going. "You can't possibly think Miranda. I saw her." "David, right before I fell, she was standing at the top of the stairs, and she looked pleased." David sat down heavily in the visitor's chair. He looked 10 years older suddenly. "Miranda has her faults, but she wouldn't hurt you. She's been part of this family for years. So was Clara. And she disappeared." The words hung between them, heavy with implication. David rubbed his face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should look closer at what really happened 20 years ago. At who had access, who was there, who lied about their alibi." David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was tired. "I found those same discrepancies. Years ago, I confronted Miranda about the security footage, about her timeline not matching up. And she said she'd misremembered, that she'd been upset about Clara. That time got mixed up in her head. It was plausible." He looked at Hailey. "But you think there's more to it?" "I think," Hailey said slowly, "that we need someone objective, someone who can investigate without emotional attachments getting in the way." David nodded, something resolving in his expression. "I know someone, Jason Carter. He's the best private investigator in Denver. If there's something to find, he'll find it." Jason Carter didn't look like Hailey's idea of a private investigator. He was maybe late 30s, with the kind of perpetual stubble that was either fashionable or lazy, wearing jeans and a leather jacket that had seen better days. But his eyes were sharp, missing nothing as he surveyed the staircase where Hailey had fallen. "Screws don't just walk away," he said, crouching to examine the holes in the wall. "These were removed deliberately." "You can see the tool marks." David looked sick. "So someone really did this. Someone with access to the house and a screwdriver." Jason stood, pulling out a small notebook. "Let's start with the basics. Who was here that day?" "The usual household staff," David said. "The housekeeper, the gardener, Miranda, of course, and Hailey and myself. I'll need to interview all of them." Jason turned to Hailey. "You said you saw Miranda right after you fell. Where was she when you started down the stairs?" "I don't know. I didn't see anyone. But when I was lying there, she was at the top, looking down." "How long between the fall and when you saw her?" Hailey thought back. "Maybe 30 seconds. David got there first. He was coming from the kitchen." Jason made notes. "And you're sure about her expression, that she looked satisfied?" "Positive, just for a second before she put on the concerned act." Jason studied her. "You don't trust her? Not even a little bit? Good. Trust your instincts." He turned to David. "I'm going to need access to everything. The original police reports, your private investigation files, financial records, everything from around the time your wife disappeared." David hesitated. "Some of that involves Miranda, her finances, her statements." "Especially that," Jason said. "Look, I get it. She's family. But if someone's trying to hurt your daughter, we need to know who and why. And right now, she's the only person with a motive." "What motive?" David asked. Though Hailey could hear the doubt creeping into his voice, Jason gave him a level look. "You're a wealthy man. Miranda's lived in your house for 5 years. positioned as your closest companion. Then Hailey shows up, and suddenly she's not the woman in your life anymore. Suddenly there's an air. That's motive. David sat down on the stairs, his head in his hands. I want to believe you're wrong. I hope I am, Jason said, not unkindly, but we need to be sure. Over the next 3 days, Jason worked with quiet efficiency. He interviewed the staff, pulled financial records, and spent hours going through David's old investigation files. Hailey, confined to the house with her broken arm, watched Miranda carefully. Miranda had gotten quieter since the accident. She took her meals in her room, claimed headaches when David tried to talk to her, but Hailey caught her watching sometimes, from doorways and around corners, her expression unreadable. On the 3rd day, Jason called a meeting in David's study. He spread papers across the desk, bank statements, highlighted and annotated. I found something, he said. The night Clara disappeared, Miranda withdrew $5,000 from her personal account. Cash. David frowned. That's not necessarily suspicious. Maybe she needed it for something. At 10 p.m., Jason pulled out another statement. And here, 2 weeks after Clara disappeared, another withdrawal, $10,000 this time, then another 6 months later. All cash, all from ATMs far from here. What are you saying? David asked. I'm saying someone was being paid off, and I think I know who. Jason pulled out a final document, a faded photocopy of a hospital registry. St. Mary's Psychiatric Hospital, 3 states over. They admitted a Jane Doe patient the week after Clara disappeared. A woman matching her description. No memory, no eyed, heavily sedated. Hailey felt her blood run cold. Clara, I don't know yet, but I'm going there tomorrow to find out. Jason looked at David. I think Miranda had your wife committed. I think she's been keeping this secret for 20 years, and I think she'll do whatever it takes to protect it. David's face had gone white. That's impossible. Miranda wouldn't. She would, Hailey interrupted quietly. She tried to kill me, David. She's capable of anything. David looked between them, and Hailey saw the moment he finally let himself believe it. The moment he stopped protecting Miranda and started seeing the truth. Find her, David said to Jason, his voice shaking. Find Clara. Bring me proof. Jason nodded. I'll leave first thing tomorrow. That night, Hailey woke to the smell of smoke. The smoke turned out to be nothing. Miranda burning papers in the fireplace at 2 a.m. Just old correspondence, she'd said when David found her. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd do some cleaning. But Hailey had seen the edge of a bank statement curling in the flames before Miranda shoved it deeper into the fire. Jason left at dawn. Hailey watched his car disappear down the driveway and felt a strange mix of hope and dread. What if he found nothing? What if Clara really was dead? And this was all just coincidence and paranoia? What if he found her? The day dragged. David went to his office. Unable to focus on work but needing the distraction, Miranda stayed in her room with another one of her convenient headaches. Hailey wandered the mansion, her cast making everything awkward, her mind racing with possibilities. She found herself in the conservatory, surrounded by Miranda's orchids. They were beautiful in an unsettling way. Too perfect, too controlled, like everything else Miranda touched. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jason. Found the hospital. Going in now. Hailey sat down on the wicker bench, staring at those 3 words. This was it. In a few hours they'd know. 300 miles away. Jason Carter stood in what used to be St. Mary's Psychiatric Hospital. The building had been abandoned for 5 years, windows broken, walls covered in graffiti. But the administrative offices were still accessible, records still filed away in dusty cabinets. He'd called ahead, found the former administrator living in a retirement community nearby. She'd agreed to meet him, said she remembered the Jane Doe case. Haunted me for years, she'd said on the phone. Mrs. Eleanor Hughes was 83, sharp as a tack, with kind eyes that had seen too much suffering. She met Jason in the hospital's old break room, bringing a box of files she'd kept when the facility closed. I always thought someone would come looking eventually, she said, setting the box on a table that wobbled on uneven legs. That poor woman, she was there for 5 years before she escaped. Escaped. Jason opened the box, walked right out one morning when a nurse left the door unlocked. We searched for weeks, but she was gone. I always hoped she'd found somewhere better. Eleanor pulled out a file. This is everything we had on her. Jason opened it. The intake photo made his breath catch, even sedated, even with 20 years between then and now. The resemblance to Hailey was unmistakable. This was Clara Sinclair. Who brought her in? He asked. A woman said she'd found the patient wandering, confused with a baby, said the patient had tried to hurt the child, was clearly mentally unstable. The woman took the baby to safety and brought the patient here. Eleanor's voice was bitter. We should have asked more questions, but she paid cash for the first year up front. Said she'd handle everything. Do you remember what this woman looked like? Elegant. Well-dressed, dark hair. Eleanor pulled out another paper. She signed in under a fake name, but I snapped a photo of her once. Security protocol, even if she didn't know it. She handed Jason a grainy photograph. The woman's face was turned slightly away from the camera, but Jason could make out enough features to be certain. Miranda Sinclair. What happened to the patient after she escaped? Jason asked. No idea. We reported it to the police, but without a real name or family to notify. Eleanor shook her head. She just vanished, like she'd never existed. Jason's mind was racing. Clara had been alive 5 years ago. Maybe still was. But where? The patient? Did she ever speak, say anything about her past? Not for the first few years. The medication kept her mostly sedated. But toward the end, she started having moments of clarity. She'd talk about a baby, a butterfly necklace. She drew pictures sometimes. Eleanor reached into the box and pulled out a stack of papers. We kept some of them. Jason spread the drawings across the table. They were crude, done with crayons or pencils, but the subject was clear. A small child, a golden butterfly, a man's face. Clara had been trying to remember her family. There was one other thing, Eleanor said quietly. Right before she escaped, she said a name. Just once, but I wrote it down because she said it with such certainty. She pulled out a small notebook, flipped through pages. Here, she said, David will find me. David will know I didn't leave. Jason felt something tight in his chest. Did anyone try to contact a David? We had no last name, no way to verify, and the woman who'd brought her in had specifically said no family contact. We thought, Eleanor's voice broke. We thought we were helping. Jason gathered the files, the photograph, the drawings. Mrs. Hughes, you may have just solved a 20-year-old mystery. The baby, Eleanor said. Did you find the baby? We found her. She's 23 now, and she's been looking for her mother. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Then I'm glad I kept these. I always hoped someone would come. The drive back to Denver felt endless. Jason called David halfway through, told him what he'd found. He heard David's sharp intake of breath, the long silence that followed. She was alive, David finally said. All this time, she was alive, and I didn't know. David, we don't know where she is now. She escaped 5 years ago. The trail goes cold there, but she's out there somewhere, and Miranda, his voice turned hard. Miranda did this. She took my wife, my child, and destroyed our lives. We need solid proof before we confront her. Right now, we have circumstantial evidence. A good lawyer could argue coincidence. I don't care about lawyers, David said. I care about finding Clara. Jason understood, but he also knew they had to be smart about this. Let me dig deeper. If Clara's alive, she left a trail somewhere. People don't just disappear. But even as he said it, Jason knew that wasn't true. People disappeared all the time, especially people who'd been broken by trauma, who had no memory, no identity, no way back to their old lives. He thought about those drawings. A woman trying desperately to remember who she was, trying to hold on to pieces of a life that had been stolen from her. Jason had been doing this job for 15 years. He'd seen a lot of darkness, a lot of cruelty. But this, what Miranda had done, this was a special kind of evil. He pressed harder on the gas pedal. David and Hailey needed to see this evidence. They needed to know that Clara hadn't abandoned them, that she'd been fighting to get back all along, and they needed to be ready, because when Miranda realized what they knew, there was no telling what she'd do. Hailey was waiting when Jason arrived back at the mansion. David was beside her, looking like he'd aged a decade in a single day. They gathered in the study, and Jason spread everything across the desk. Files, photographs, drawings. Hailey picked up one of Clara's drawings, her hands trembling. It showed a woman and a little girl, both wearing butterfly necklaces. Underneath, in shaky handwriting, "My baby. I want my baby. She never forgot me," Hailey whispered. "Never," Jason confirmed. "She spent 5 years fighting through medication and confusion, trying to remember, trying to get back to you." David stared at the photograph of Miranda entering the hospital. How could she do this? Why? "That's what we need to find out," Jason said. "But first, we need to find Clara." Upstairs, Miranda pressed her ear against the heating vent, listening to every word, her hands clenched into fists. They were getting too close. Much too close. She'd have to act soon. Jason worked like a man possessed. He spent 3 days tracking down every homeless shelter, women's refuge, and social service center within a 100-mile radius of where Clara had escaped. David hired 2 additional investigators to expand the search further. Hailey couldn't sit still. She paced the mansion, her cast a constant reminder of how dangerous this had become. Miranda had gone eerily quiet, taking her meals in her room, claiming she was unwell, but Hailey saw her sometimes, watching from windows, her face unreadable. "We're going to find her," David kept saying, like a prayer. "We have to." On the 4th day, Jason got the call. He was in a diner, going through his notes for the 100th time. When his phone rang, the number was unfamiliar. "Jason Carter," he answered. "Mr. Carter." The voice was female, elderly. "My name is Patricia Moreno. I run a women's shelter in Silverton. I saw your flyer about Clara Sinclair." Jason's heart jumped. He'd distributed flyers with Clara's photo, the one from 20 years ago and an age-progressed version, to every shelter in a 3-state area. "You've seen her. She's here. Been here about 4 years now. Goes by the name Sarah. She has memory problems. Trauma-related, we think. But when I saw this photo..." Patricia paused. "Mr. Carter, we don't usually give out information about our residents. But if this woman has family looking for her, if she's been missing all this time, what's the address?" Jason was already grabbing his keys. 40 minutes later, he pulled up to a modest building in a quiet neighborhood. Patricia Moreno met him at the door, a small woman with iron gray hair and compassionate eyes. "She's in the common room," Patricia said. "But please go slowly. She's fragile. Whatever happened to her left deep scars." Jason nodded, his throat tight. He'd seen the intake photo from the hospital, but that was 5 years ago. What if it wasn't her? What if... He walked into the common room and stopped. A woman sat by the window, gray-streaked dark hair falling around her shoulders, staring out at the small garden, even from behind, even aged by trauma and time. Jason recognized her from David's photographs. Clara Sinclair. She turned when she heard footsteps, and Jason saw Hailey's green eyes looking back at him from a face marked by suffering. She was thin, frail-looking, but there was something unbroken in those eyes, something that had survived. "Sarah," Patricia said gently, "this man would like to talk to you. Is that all right?" "Clara?" Sarah studied Jason warily. "Do I know you?" "No." "Ma'am, but I know your family, your husband, David, your daughter, Hailey." Something flickered across her face. Pain, recognition, hope. "I don't," she started, then stopped. Her hands twisted in her lap. "Sometimes I remember. A man's face. A baby. A necklace shaped like a butterfly. But it's like looking through fog. I can't hold on to it." Jason sat down across from her, moving slowly. "What if I told you those memories are real? That David and Hailey have been looking for you for 20 years. Clara's breathing quickened. 20 years. You disappeared with your infant daughter. Someone, Jason chose his words carefully. Someone took you to a hospital, kept you sedated, made you forget. Tears started rolling down Clara's face. I knew, somewhere deep down, I knew I'd lost something important. Someone important. But every time I tried to remember, it hurt so much. You don't have to remember everything right now, Jason said gently. But would you be willing to see them, David and Hailey? Clara looked terrified and hopeful in equal measure. My daughter, how old is she? 23. beautiful, smart. She has your eyes." Clara closed her eyes, and more tears came. "I want to see them, but I'm scared. What if I can't remember? What if I disappoint them?" "You could never disappoint them," Jason said. "They've been waiting their whole lives for this moment." David's hands shook so badly he could barely hold the phone when Jason called. "I found her," Jason said simply. "I found Clara." The world tilted. David sat down hard, his vision blurring. Is she okay? She's alive. She's safe. And she wants to see you." Hailey was beside him in seconds, having heard his sharp intake of breath. What is it?" "Your mother," David managed. "Jason found her. She's alive." Hailey's knees gave out. She sank onto the couch, her good hand pressed to her mouth. When can we see her?" "Now," Jason said through the phone. "Come now?" "But David, she's been through hell. Her memory is fragmented. Be prepared for that." "I don't care if she doesn't remember her own name," David said, his voice breaking. "She's alive. That's all that matters." They were in the car within minutes. David drove too fast, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Hailey sat beside him, touching the butterfly necklace at her throat over and over. Like a talisman, neither of them noticed Miranda watching from an upstairs window, her phone pressed to her ear. "They found her," she said quietly. "Yes, I'm sure. No, there's no stopping it now. I need to get ahead of this. She listened, her face hardening. "You're right. There's only one way this ends." She hung up and stared at her reflection in the window. 20 years of careful planning, of positioning herself as the devoted sister-in-law, the loyal companion, all of it crumbling because one stupid girl couldn't stay away. Well, if she was going down, she wouldn't go quietly. Miranda picked up her car keys and headed for the garage. She knew where Silverton was, knew exactly how long it would take David and Hailey to get there. She had time. Not much, but enough. The shelter looked peaceful in the afternoon sun. Hailey got out of the car on shaking legs. This was it. After 20 years of fragmented memories and unanswered questions, she was about to meet her mother. Patricia met them at the door. "She's waiting in the back garden. I thought privacy would be better than the common room." They followed her through the building. Hailey's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. David's hand found hers, squeezed tight. The garden was small but well-tended, with flower beds and a wooden bench. And there, sitting on that bench with Jason beside her, was a woman with gray-streaked dark hair and green eyes that widened when she saw them. Clara stood on trembling legs. For a long moment, nobody moved. 20 years collapsed into a single breath. Then Clara whispered, "David, Clara." His voice broke on her name. She took a step forward, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I tried to come back. I tried to remember." "Don't," David said, closing the distance between them. "Don't apologize. None of this was your fault." They stood inches apart, two people trying to bridge an impossible gap. Clara's eyes moved to Hailey. "My baby, you were so small. I remember singing to you." "Mariposa," Hailey whispered. "You called me your little butterfly." Clara's face crumpled. Yes, my Mariposa." Hailey walked forward, and Clara's arms opened. The embrace was awkward at first. Two strangers who should have known each other. But then Clara started humming that old lullaby, and Hailey felt something deep inside her break open. "I looked for you," Hailey sobbed against her mother's shoulder. "My whole life I looked for you. I'm here now," Clara whispered. "I'm here." David wrapped his arms around both of them, and they stood like that in the garden. 3 people, finally, impossibly whole. Jason watched from a distance, a small smile on his face. Then his phone buzzed. A text from one of his contacts at the police department. "Miranda Sinclair just withdrew $50,000 cash. Thought you should know." His smile disappeared. He looked toward the street, suddenly uneasy. They'd found Clara, but this wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. David wanted to take Clara home immediately, but Jason convinced him to wait. "We need to do this right," Jason said. "Miranda knows we're onto her. If we just show up with Clara, she'll have time to cover her tracks. Lawyer up. Maybe even run. We need to trap her publicly, with witnesses. so she can't wriggle out of this. What are you suggesting? David asked. Jason's expression was grim. We set up a meeting, something formal, official. Invite your business partners, close friends, people Miranda respects and fears. Then we present the evidence in front of everyone. She won't be able to deny it or make it disappear. Clara sat beside Hailey on the shelter's couch, holding her daughter's hand like she was afraid to let go. I can do it, she said quietly. I can face her. I need to. Are you sure? Hailey asked. It's going to be hard, seeing her again. Clara's jaw tightened. She stole 20 years from us, from all of us. I want to look her in the eye when everyone finally knows what she did. David made the calls that evening. He scheduled a formal meeting at the mansion for the following night. A major announcement regarding the Sinclair family estate. His 3 law partners, the family accountant, several longtime friends, and of course, Miranda. She'll suspect something, one of his partners warned over the phone. Good, David said coldly. Let her sweat. The day of the meeting, Clara stayed at a hotel with Hailey and Jason. They'd bought her new clothes. Nothing fancy, just a simple dress and shoes that fit. But when Hailey saw her mother looking at herself in the mirror, she saw tears. What is it? Hailey asked gently. I haven't looked like myself in so long, Clara whispered. At the hospital, they kept me in those awful gowns. At the shelter, I wore whatever was donated. But this, I look almost like I remember. You look beautiful, Hailey said. Clara turned from the mirror. I'm terrified. What if I freeze up? What if I can't say what needs to be said? Then we'll say it for you, Hailey replied. You're not alone anymore. You'll never be alone again. That evening, they drove to the mansion. Hailey felt her mother tense as they pulled through the gates. I remember this place, Clara breathed. The gardens, the fountain. David brought me here after we got married. I thought it was the most beautiful house I'd ever seen. It's still beautiful, Hailey said. But it's been missing something all these years. It's been missing you. They entered through the back entrance, away from the arriving guests. David had set up the meeting in the main drawing room, a formal space with uncomfortable antique furniture that nobody ever used, perfect for what they had planned. Jason had already set up a projector and screen. Documents were organized in folders. Everything was ready. She's here, David said, checking his watch. Miranda arrived 10 minutes ago. She looks nervous. She should be, Jason muttered. Through the doorway, Hailey could see the assembled guests taking their seats. David's partners, Richard, Thomas, and Jennifer, Harold Chen, the family accountant, Margaret and Robert Fitzgerald, old friends who'd known David and Clara as newlyweds. All of them looked curious, slightly confused about why they'd been summoned. And there was Miranda, sitting in the front row, wearing a pale blue dress and pearls. She looked composed, elegant, but Hailey could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped her clutch purse too tightly. David walked to the front of the room. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I know you're wondering why I called this meeting. Bit dramatic, David, Richard said with a forced laugh. What's this all about? It's about the truth, David said quietly. About something that happened 20 years ago. Something that destroyed my family. And about the person responsible. Miranda's face went pale, but she kept her composure. David, what are you talking about? I'm talking about Clara, David said. About what really happened the night she disappeared. A ripple went through the room. Everyone knew the story. David's wife had vanished with their infant daughter, never to be seen again. It was Denver society's greatest unsolved mystery. I don't understand, Margaret Fitzgerald said. What does this have to do with everything? David interrupted. He nodded to Jason, who turned on the projector. The first image showed a bank statement. Miranda's name at the top. A withdrawal highlighted in yellow, $5,000, cash, the night Clara disappeared. Miranda withdrew a significant amount of cash the evening my wife vanished, David said. His voice was steady, but Hailey could hear the rage underneath. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Miranda said she needed it for a personal matter. I trusted her. Miranda stood up. David, this is absurd. You can't seriously be accusing me of... Sit down. David's voice cracked like a whip. I'm not finished. Miranda sat, her face flushed. The next image showed the hospital registry from St. Mary's Psychiatric Hospital. The Jane Doe entry was highlighted, along with the admission date, 3 days after Clara disappeared. A woman matching Clara's description was admitted to this facility. David continued. No eyed, no memory. She was kept sedated for 5 years. The admitting party. He clicked to the next slide. The grainy security photo of Miranda. Paid cash, used a fake name. But that's Miranda Sinclair. Gasps filled the room. Miranda was shaking her head, but she'd gone completely white. This is insane, she said, her voice high and strained. That photo could be anyone. Eleanor Hughes, the hospital administrator, identified you from a more recent photo, Jason said, stepping forward. She remembers you very clearly. You told her Clara was a danger to herself and her child. You said you'd handle everything. And you did, David said bitterly. You drugged my wife, stole my daughter, and had Clara committed under a false identity. You destroyed 3 lives so you could, what, playhouse? Position yourself as my companion? Miranda stood again, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You have no proof of any of this. Circumstantial evidence, and the testimony of some old woman who probably can't remember what she had for breakfast. Actually, a new voice said from the doorway. Her memory is perfect. Every head turned. Clara stood in the entrance, Hailey beside her. Even after 20 years, even aged by trauma, Clara Sinclair was unmistakable. The room erupted. People jumped to their feet. Margaret Fitzgerald actually screamed, but Hailey only watched Miranda, whose face had cycled through shock, horror, and something that looked almost like resignation. Hello, Miranda, Clara said quietly, walking into the room. Her legs were shaking, but she held her head high. It's been a long time. Miranda stared at her, mouth opening and closing soundlessly. I remember everything now, Clara continued, her voice gaining strength. I remember you showing up at the hospital that night. I remember the tea you brought me, how sweet you were. I remember drinking it because I trusted you. Her voice hardened. And I remember waking up strapped to a bed in a place I didn't recognize, while you stood over me and told me David would never look for me, that he thought I'd abandoned him and our baby. Clara, Miranda started. 20 years, Clara said, tears streaming down her face. 20 years of drugs and fog and fighting to remember who I was. 20 years of knowing I had a daughter out there somewhere, but not being able to find her, not even being able to remember her name. She walked until she stood directly in front of Miranda. Why? Clara's voice broke. We were friends. I trusted you. Why did you do this? Miranda's composure finally shattered. Her face crumpled, and she sank back into her chair, sobbing. Because I loved him, she whispered. I loved David. I'd always loved him. Since before he met you, and when Robert died. I thought maybe, finally. So you destroyed my family. David's voice was ice. You committed kidnapping, false imprisonment, and God knows what else because you loved me. I just wanted to keep us together, Miranda sobbed. To keep the family whole. I never meant... You never meant what? Hailey stepped forward, fury in her voice. To drug my mother, to steal me from her, to push me down the stairs. Miranda looked up, mascara running down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I couldn't lose everything. Not after all these years. Outside, sirens wailed. Jason had called the police the moment Clara walked in. Miranda heard them too. She looked around the room at all those faces. Shock, disgust, horror. 20 years of careful social positioning destroyed in 20 minutes. I only wanted to protect this family, she whispered, one last time. The doors opened. 2 police officers entered. Miranda Sinclair didn't resist as they read her rights and led her away in handcuffs. The room remained frozen in stunned silence long after the police led Miranda away. Margaret Fitzgerald was crying quietly, her husband's arm around her shoulders. David's law partners sat rigid in their chairs, faces pale with shock. Richard finally spoke, his voice hoarse. David, we had no idea. All these years, we thought... I know what you thought, David said quietly. I thought it too, that Clara had left me. Left us. He looked at his wife, standing small and fragile in the center of the room. I should have looked harder, should have known she'd never abandon Hailey. Clara walked to him, her steps uncertain. You couldn't have known. Miranda was careful. She planned everything perfectly. Her voice caught, almost perfectly. Hailey moved to her parents' side, and the three of them stood together, a family reunited by persistence and luck, and the refusal to let go of hope. Harold Chen, the accountant, cleared his throat. David, the legal ramifications of this are going to be extensive. Miranda had access to family finances, estate planning. I don't care about any of that right now, David interrupted. Jason, can you handle the legal coordination with the police? Jason nodded. Already on it. They'll need formal statements from all of you. But that can wait until tomorrow, tonight. You should be together. The guests filed out slowly, many stopping to embrace Clara, to welcome her back, to apologize for not questioning harder when she'd first disappeared. Margaret Fitzgerald hugged her tightly, whispering, "We should have known you'd never leave. I'm so sorry we didn't fight for you." When the room finally emptied, just the four of them remained. David, Clara, Hailey, and Jason. "I'll give you privacy," Jason said, gathering his files. "But David, one thing. Miranda made bail 2 hours ago." David's head snapped up. "What? How?" "High-priced lawyer, no prior record, strong community ties. Judge set it at $1 million. She paid it in cash." Jason's expression was grim. "She's out there somewhere, and she knows everything is falling apart. Be careful." After Jason left, the mansion felt too big, too empty. Clara walked through rooms she hadn't seen in 20 years, touching furniture, looking at photographs on the walls. "You kept everything the same," she said softly, standing in the library where she and David used to read together in the evenings. "I couldn't change it," David admitted. "Every room held memories of you. Changing them felt like admitting you were never coming back." Clara turned to face him, really looking at him for the first time since the meeting. "We've both aged. You're still beautiful," David said. "I'm broken," Clara replied, her voice barely a whisper. 20 years of drugs and confusion and trauma. I don't know if I can ever be the person you remember." David crossed the room and took her hands gently. "I don't need you to be who you were. I just need you to be here. That's enough." Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. "I kept a journal at the hospital. When they finally reduced my medication enough that I could think clearly, I wrote about you, about trying to remember your face. I drew pictures of a man I thought might be my husband, a baby I was sure I'd lost. The nurses thought I was making it all up, constructing a fantasy to cope with whatever trauma had made me forget. But you weren't," Hailey said from the doorway. "You were remembering us." Clara looked at her daughter, this young woman who'd grown up without a mother, who'd fought through her own trauma to find the truth. "Tell me about your life, about what I missed." They sat in the library until midnight, Clara listening as Hailey talked about growing up with Aunt Rachel, about working at Bernie's diner, about the moment she saw that photograph and her whole world shifted. David filled in his own story, the years of searching, the private investigators, the slow acceptance that Clara might be gone forever. "I dated a few times," David admitted. "Nothing serious. Miranda would always find something wrong with them, convince me they weren't right. Now I understand why. She was obsessed," Clara said, "even at the hospital, when she'd visit." "Wait," Hailey interrupted. "She visited you?" Clara nodded slowly. "The first few years. She came every few months. I was so heavily sedated I barely remember it. But she'd sit by my bed and talk. Tell me about David, about how well he was doing, how happy he was without me, how I'd been a burden he was better off without." David looked sick. "All that time, she knew exactly where you were. She wanted me to give up," Clara continued, "to forget completely, or to die quietly in that place. But something in me refused. Even through the fog, I knew she was lying. I knew someone was waiting for me." A sound from the hallway made them all freeze. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, touching. Miranda's voice drifted in from the darkness. "Really? It's like something out of a fairy tale. The lost family reunited at last." She appeared in the doorway, no longer wearing the pearls and elegant dress from earlier. She looked disheveled, wild-eyed, and in her hand was a small pistol. David stood immediately. positioning himself between Miranda and his family. "Miranda, don't do this. It's over. Over!" She laughed, a brittle sound that sent chills down Hailey's spine. "It's not over until I say it's over. I've spent 20 years building this life. Positioning myself as the woman you needed, I got rid of her." She gestured at Clara with the gun. "And I raised that child to be nothing, nobody, so she'd never come looking." "You didn't raise me," Hailey said, her voice steady despite her fear. "You abandoned me with an alcoholic and hoped I'd disappear." "I should have done more," Miranda said, almost to herself. "Should have made sure you'd never be found. But I thought 20 years was enough. Thought the trail was cold, the case forgotten." Her eyes focused on Clara. "And then you had to survive, had to escape, had to ruin everything." "The police are on their way," David said quietly. "Jason called them the moment we heard you'd made bail." Miranda's laugh was hollow. "Of course he did. Efficient Jason, always one step ahead." She raised the gun, pointing it at Clara. "But they're not here yet, and I can still fix this. If she's gone, really gone this time, maybe you'll finally see that we belong together." "I never loved you," David said, his voice hard. "Not the way you wanted. Even if Clara had never come back, it would never have been you." Something in Miranda's expression cracked. The gun wavered. 20 years, she whispered. "I waited 20 years. And you'll spend the next 20 in prison," a voice said from behind her. Jason stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 police officers. Miranda spun, but Jason was faster. He grabbed her wrist, forcing the gun upward. It discharged into the ceiling with a deafening crack. The officers tackled Miranda to the ground. This time, there would be no bail, no second chances. As they dragged her away, still screaming about how it wasn't fair, how she'd done everything for love, Clara collapsed into David's arms, shaking. "It's over," David murmured into her hair. "It's really over." Hailey joined their embrace, the 3 of them holding each other as police radios crackled and footsteps echoed through the mansion. Outside, the night sky was clear and full of stars. Somewhere in the darkness, a butterfly rested on a flower, waiting for morning. The long nightmare was finally ending. 3 months later, the garden had never looked more beautiful. David had hired landscapers to restore it to the way Clara remembered. Wildflowers mixed with structured beds. A small fountain where butterflies gathered in the afternoon sun. Paths of smooth stone winding through bursts of color. Hailey sat on the wooden bench, her cast finally removed, watching a monarch butterfly land on a nearby bloom. Her mother sat beside her, thinner than she should be, but gaining weight slowly, color returning to her cheeks week by week. "Dr. Morrison says the nightmares are normal," Clara said quietly, "that it might take years to fully process the trauma." "You don't have to explain," Hailey replied. "Take all the time you need." Clara smiled, reaching over to touch the golden butterfly necklace at Hailey's throat, twin to the one she now wore again. "Some days I still can't believe this is real, that I'm really home." "It's real," Hailey assured her. "And you're not going anywhere." The trial had been brutal but swift. Miranda's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, claiming obsessive love had driven her to temporary insanity, but the evidence was overwhelming. The drugging, the false imprisonment, the attempted murder of Hailey. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. 20 years. Miranda Sinclair would spend the next 2 decades in prison, exactly the amount of time she'd stolen from Clara. David appeared on the garden path, carrying a tray with 3 glasses of lemonade. He'd cut back his hours at the firm, spending more time at home, relearning how to be a husband and father. "Jason called," he said, settling onto the bench across from them. "The last of Miranda's appeals was denied. It's officially over." Clara let out a long breath. "Good. I know I should feel something. Pity, maybe, or forgiveness. But all I feel is relief. You don't owe her anything," David said firmly. "Not sympathy, not understanding, and certainly not forgiveness." They sat in comfortable silence, sipping lemonade in the warm afternoon sun. These moments still felt fragile to Hailey, like they might shatter if she breathed too hard. But they were getting stronger, more solid. They were becoming routine. "I enrolled in community college," Hailey said suddenly. "Classes start next month. Clara's face lit up. Hailey, that's wonderful. What will you study? Psychology, I think. Maybe social work? Hailey smiled. I keep thinking about all those years Mom spent in that hospital, and how different things might have been if someone had asked the right questions. I want to be the person who asks those questions. David's eyes were suspiciously bright. Your mother would have been so proud. Is so proud. He corrected quickly. I am, Clara confirmed, squeezing Hailey's hand. So incredibly proud. Bernie had thrown her a going-away party at the diner when she'd given notice. The regulars had pooled money for a laptop, and Mrs. Peterson had cried into her coffee saying Hailey deserved every good thing coming her way. You'll still visit, though, Bernie had asked gruffly. Place won't be the same without you. She would. The diner had been her home for years. Not the mansion with its marble and mahogany, but that greasy little place where people knew her name and didn't care that her jeans had holes or her shoes were worn. A butterfly landed on Clara's shoulder. She went very still, then smiled. Hello, little one. Mom used to do that, Hailey said softly. When I was small, she'd stay perfectly still when butterflies landed on her. Said they were good luck. I remember, Clara whispered. I remember standing in this garden, pregnant with you, and butterflies would land on my stomach. David said you'd be blessed. You were right, David said, his voice rough with emotion. She's the best thing we ever created. The butterfly took flight, joining others dancing above the flower beds. Hailey counted 5, 6, 7 of them, a kaleidoscope of wings in the golden light. I've been thinking, Clara said slowly, about what I want to do. Now that I'm me again. You don't have to do anything, David said quickly. You can take all the time you need. I want to volunteer, Clara interrupted gently. At shelters, maybe, or hospitals, places where people might be lost like I was. I want to help them find their way home. Hailey felt tears prick her eyes. After everything Clara had been through, she still wanted to help others. That was who her mother was. Someone who saw suffering and moved toward it instead of away. That's beautiful, Mom, Hailey said. Clara laughed softly. I'm still getting used to that, being called Mom, for 20 years. I wasn't anyone's mother. Now I have this incredible daughter who's all grown up, and I miss so much. You're here now, Hailey replied. That's what matters. Your mother's right, though, David said. We did miss a lot. Your first words, first steps, first day of school, all those milestones. So we make new ones, Hailey suggested. We can't get the past back, but we can build a future. David raised his lemonade glass. To new beginnings. Clara and Hailey raised theirs, and the 3 glasses clinked together in the afternoon sun. They talked for hours as the sun moved across the sky, painting everything gold and amber. Clara shared more memories that had returned, fragments of her life before, piecing together slowly like a puzzle. Hailey told stories about Bakersfield, about the good moments mixed in with the hard ones. David admitted his mistakes, the times he'd given up too easily. Let Miranda convince him to stop searching. We're all imperfect, Clara said gently. We all did the best we could with what we knew. As evening approached, they moved inside for dinner. David had been learning to cook, something that amused Clara to no end. You used to burn toast, she teased. I've improved, he insisted. Though the slightly charred edges of the chicken suggested otherwise, they ate together at the kitchen table. Not the formal dining room. That felt too stiff, too much like performing. Here, in the warm kitchen with mismatched plates and slightly burnt food, they were just a family. After dinner, Hailey helped her mother with the dishes while David made coffee. Normal, domestic, ordinary, all the things they'd been denied for 20 years. Are you happy? Clara asked suddenly, handing Hailey a wet plate. Yes, Hailey answered without hesitation. Are you? Clara paused, considering. I'm getting there. Some days are harder than others. The trauma doesn't just disappear, but yes, I think I'm finding my way back to happy. That's enough, Hailey said. That's more than enough. Later, they returned to the garden to watch the sunset. The sky blazed orange and pink. Clouds lit from below like they were on fire. Butterflies settled into flowers for the night, wings folding closed. I used to dream about this, Clara said softly. In the hospital, in the shelter. I'd dream about standing in a garden with people I loved. Watching the sun go down, I thought it was just a fantasy my broken mind created. It's real, David said, his arm around her waist. You're home. We're together. It's real. Hailey stood slightly apart, giving her parents a moment, and touched the butterfly at her throat. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, the photograph, the DNA test, the investigation, the fear and danger, and moments when she'd wanted to give up, but she hadn't, and because of that, they were all here now. The past doesn't hurt anymore, Clara murmured, leaning into David's embrace. No, he agreed. Only peace now. Just peace. Hailey joined them, and they stood together as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Above them, a single butterfly made one last flight, catching the final rays of light on its golden wings before settling into the flowers. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Clara's continued therapy, Hailey's college classes, David's work. But tonight, in this garden, they were simply together. A family reunited, a circle made whole, and that was more than enough.